Hi everyone, I'm going to do a little video on coloring fur. I have had a few people email me the past couple weeks about a video on fur again. A lot of people have trouble with this, and there's different ways you can do it. I've shown in my classes a couple different ways you can do it, but I thought I'd create this fun little video using this cute stamp. This is a popcorn bear. From my friend Amy's store at Paper Romance, and I'll have the link on this video for you in case you're interested. They're great stamps. Let me zoom out. This is actually the whole stamp. It has a little duck friend following him with a flower. I'm just using part of the stamp, so I didn't stamp the whole thing out because I'm not going to do the entire image in order to fit in to my time limit of videos. So anyway, the colors that I used in this particular image I used on a card, and let me find the date. It was my April 23rd blog post. I did a card with this cutie, and if you want to kind of go over there and see how I did that, I'm going to use the same exact colors that I used for that bear. E35 is my darkest, then E31, then E53 and E50 are the colors that I used for this bear. Again, when I color, I used my darkest to my lightest. Again, that's not any rule of thumb. That's the way I color. That's the way I teach. If you're more comfortable, starting light to dark, then by all means, do what's most comfortable for you. The paper I'm using here is one of my new favorites. It's a Cryogen iridescent. It has a little bit of subtle iridescent in it. Not anything that would take away from your image, but if you kind of move the paper around in a different light, you can kind of see a little bit of a subtle sparkle. It's got a little bit of a tooth to it, but it's also semi-smooth, so it's a nice blend of both. Very easy to use, very easy to blend on. And I'll have a link to this too. I get mine from my friend at Paper Temptress. She has some great papers over there. So when I start, I'm going to start with my E35, which is my darkest. And when I color fur, I tend to use broader strokes. And for this one, when I say broader, I mean more of, instead of a back and forth, it's just kind of a slanting stroke. I'm just going to kind of have the light source in my center area when I'm coloring him. So I'm going to keep that in mind. I always add a little bit of dark here around their noses just to make that pop out a little bit more. Again, when you start with your dark, you can just lay down a little bit. You can always go back and add more dark. It's harder to take it away, which is why I start with it. Bring this down a little bit more. I'm just going to do part of his arm here for you to see. And E31 is my next color. Again, using that same kind of stroke. I'm kind of going in the same manner as far as stroking the same way that his hair is. Gives a little bit more realistic life. You can certainly color this normal if you want a smoother look. I like a little bit of a texture to it when I'm coloring any kind of bear. If you wanted to color it smooth and then wet a washcloth with some colorless blender, you've seen me doing that technique before if you've watched any of my videos. You can color it by normal and then wet your washcloth or your fabric with colorless blender and just dab at it, and that will give you texture also. But you can color with texture, so you can use your Copics to get the same effect. E53 is next. And this is just a little bit of a golden tone. It's not really lighter or darker than what I've used. It's just a color that I happen to like to add because it has a little bit of that gold in it. Breaks up some of the dull color. And then E50 is my lightest color. And again, I'm just kind of laying this in. I can come back in and add more dark. Again, I'm coloring in the same manner, same strokes that I used before. Now I'm going to come in with the 31. I'm just going to go out a little bit more, darken up some of those areas. Of course, you could use different browns. It just depends on what color you want your little bear to be. I know that he'd be shadowed a little bit more here. And same thing with his front part of his nose. I know this area is going to be the lightest, so I'm just going to add a little bit of that darker color. And then going in and just blending out and over what I've done. I'm taking that E53 again. Just add a little bit of that golden tone. This is a quick process because you're not worrying about a smooth blend. You want to blend, but you just don't want to get rid of all those stroke lines. That's where the texture comes in. Makes them look like a fuzzy bear instead of a flat bear. And I'm just kind of going in and blending this out a little bit more and using the same stroke lines. Again, that E53, bring in here a little bit more. You can apply this to any animal. It doesn't have to be a bear. If you have a dog, rabbit, any kind of animal that might have this kind of fur, the same thing can be applied. Just kind of use those broad strokes. Keep some of those lines in there. I know I always say to blend those out, but when you're doing this, you want a little bit more of those lines. So don't be scared to leave those in. That's what makes him look nice and furry. And then I just kind of go in and with that lightest color and fill in a little bit more. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit. I always like to make my ears pink, and I use two colors when I do that. Of course I didn't pull the other one out, but R20 and then RV10. And you could, come in and give him a little bit of cheek if you want to. You can go lighter with your pinks if you want to. That's totally up to you as well. And then what I always do when I do that, just so it's not so stand out pink, I take that lightest color that I've used for my fur and I just go over it. And it just dulls it down just a little bit so it's not as in your face. And you can do that with anything, any cheek color, color over with that lightest color. In this case it's the E50. And in no time at all you have a little bear. So again, the trick is using brush strokes. Make sure that you're laying down your strokes in the manner that the fur is. Usually any of your images will kind of have some lines showing you that, and just keep it that way. Obviously I wouldn't want my fur going horizontally when the hair is kind of brushed up, and that's the way I kept my brush strokes here. Same thing with his arms. They were a little bit diagonal here and then started going down this way. So just keep that in mind with whatever your image you're using. But again, you don't want a super smooth blend. You want some of those lines to show that he is textured. Again, if you want to color him, normal shading and normal blending, and then use the colorless blender to kind of dot that texture on, that's certainly a different option as well. So I hope you enjoyed this quick little video. I call this a little Copic quick tip from Suzanne. Certainly not hard. You can use any form of browns that you want. This just happens to be my favorite colors for bears. It's a nice blend between dark and light. So thanks for joining me today. Bye.